call this press briefing to order. Kindly asking all journalists to please send your recorders forward. And we ask that you all put your phones on vibrate or silent. We'll start today's press briefing with our usual silent prayers, individual silent prayers. Amen and amen. Our news brief for today, Thursday, the 22nd of September 2022. The Deputy Finance Minister, One Sheku Fatamadi Bangura, has on Wednesday, the 21st of September, disclosed at the official commencement of the FY 2023 policy hearing that one of the key priority areas of government in this year's budget will focus on gender-responsive budgeting in 5 MDs. The Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, Lamina, has on Tuesday, the 20th of September, appealed to the residents of South Chiefdom to embrace peace and forget about anything that will divide them. The Independent Commission for Peace and National Cohesion has yesterday commemorated International Day of Peace with a symposium at the Bintumani Conference Center under the theme End Tribalism, Build Peace and National Cohesion. Lastly, the Minister of Environment, Professor Fode M. Jawad, has yesterday engaged supervising agencies on environmental issues as there are numerous challenges facing the environmental sector that needed concerted efforts to address. We now call on the Deputy Minister of Information and Communications to introduce our guest for today's press briefing.
Thank you very much, Nancy. Let me welcome our distinguished Minister for Local Government and Rural Development, Ambassador Lamina, to the Ministry of Information and Communications, and to formally welcome our friends from the Fourth Estate. Before I bring on the distinguished Minister, I just thought it's important for us, the fact that we are having this press briefing, and it is happening at a time when we also, the 77th session of the United Nations General Assembly is on. I thought it's important, before bringing on the Minister, to pay tribute to Sierra Leone's showing at this all-important session, and to pay particular tribute to our dear President, His Excellency, retired Brigadier Dr. Julius Maada Bio, for the very profound statements that he delivered at the 77th session, and how that statement received such an amazing acclamation. A few highlights I got from the statement of His Excellency. First, that His Excellency took time to commend the President of the 76th session, for transitioning to the 77th, and how, before he transitioned, he ensured that the United Nations General Assembly is brought back to the pre-pandemic pace. We know that the activities of the United Nations may have been disrupted by the pandemic that we had. And so it's important that leaders are meeting, they are having a physical meeting, and we believe that we will have a lot to transition into now that we are getting the pandemic behind us. His Excellency the President also commended Antonio Guterres, the current Secretary General of the United Nations, for the kind of multilateral support that he is galvanizing to addressing global challenges. We know the debilitating effects of COVID-19 and how that brought about the contraction of global economies, even the economy of Sierra Leone. We know how that shock had been compounded by the disruption in the global supply chain, and now the current crisis that we have, the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and how those challenges have been further exacerbated. So His Excellency commended the current Secretary General, and as a nation, we feel it is very important for him to have done so. And also, given the theme for the 77th session, as we all know, the theme is Watershed Movement, Transformative Solutions to Interlocking Challenges. Indeed, we are all caught up in the watershed movement, and His Excellency noted how appropriate and timely this particular theme is, and for the world to make sure that we all reckon with it. We know that with climate change and other global challenges, it is important that we should have some kind of an innovative financing model. And this is one thing that His Excellency the President has been canvassing at great lengths, calling on world leaders, financial institutions to pay due attention to this, that whatever financial model will be developed, whether it is in response, whether it's in relation to addressing climate change or other issues revolving around poverty, indebtedness, His Excellency the President believes that it would overwhelm, especially for countries like Africa, low income and middle income countries, if such financing models are flexible and they are devoid of those very stringent measures that have always held Africa to ransom. So His Excellency the President at the 77th session has been pushing for innovative financing, the sort of financing that makes room for some kind of flexibility, but also devoid of stringent conditionalities. As we all know, and again, we are proud as a nation that our President had the honor of co-chairing the high-level steering committee on SDG 4, and also His Excellency the President is the champion of the Transformating Education Summit. When the Transform Education Forum was launched, we are pleased to note that it is already beginning to have indication of a multi-billion basket fund. So for us to have a president at that level, that our president is now co-chair of the Transforming Education Summit, and he launched that when he co-chaired it with the United Nations UNESCO Director General, and he has been co-chairing and sitting side by side with the United Nations Secretary General. As a nation, we feel very proud. And if it has to do with education, I'm sure we will all do reminisce and put on our sense of history. If there was a time when Sierra Leone was referred to as the Athens of West Africa, perhaps the time has come for that reincarnation to take place and for Sierra Leone to take its place in history. So the fact that we have our darling president, our beloved president, retired Brigadier Dr. Julius Maada Bio, as the champion of Transformation Education Summit, and he has co-chaired the launch at the highest level in international affairs. I think as Sierra Leoneans, it is important for us to pay that glowing tribute to His Excellency the President. Let us also note that Sierra Leone has a bid to become a member in the non-permanent category of the United Nations Security Council. In the course of our bid, and again we all know His Excellency had declared it, the African Union has endorsed Sierra Leone as the sole candidate for Africa to pursue that bid. I mean, that is an unequivocal validation for you to have the entire African continent to look at a small nation like Sierra Leone and say we endorse Sierra Leone to be the sole candidate from Africa to sit as a member in the non-permanent category of the United Nations Security Council. This confirms to us that irrespective of what some other schools of thought that might be saying that this administration is not making the gains that it has been propelling, we see all of those very major and profound highlights, not only locally, but internationally. And the fact that we see nations gravitating towards Sierra Leone and endorsing Sierra Leone on very profound and critical developments of that nature, it gives us, all of us, I'm sure, comfort that Sierra Leone is making the much needed critical strides. And so I thought it was important for me to mention this before I would bring on distinguished Ambassador Tambalamina, the Minister of Local Government, to come and the Minister is here to give us updates on the activities of the ministry and possibly to also touch on a few things regarding some investigations or examination on the activities of the Freetown City Council. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to call on the distinguished Minister for Local Government, Ambassador Tambalamina, to take us through those highlights. Sami.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Um, the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, other administrative staff of the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, members of the Fourth Estate. It's always a pleasure to be with you and to have conversations relating to developments in the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. The mission of our ministry is to establish accountable and inclusive local governance structures with local communities and to enable them to determine their local services and develop their own priorities in partnership with central government. I need to underscore that His Excellency the President, retired Brigadier Julius Maada Bio, and coming to power or assuming the presidency, had a manifesto commitment to strengthen decentralization and also to ensure that local councils are truly functional. That has been the business of the ministry, and on assuming this position as Minister of Local Government, together with a team, you may be aware that the local government ministry includes not only the central ministry here, but also the regional ministries in all the regions. That is South, Northwest, North, East, Western region as well. So it's a large ministry with a mandate to formulate policies, to develop plans, and make legislative amendments for functional local governance. Again, the ministry has as its function to monitor local government sector performance. We also implement policies and reinforce legislation guiding local governance. It is our responsibility as the supervising ministry to also monitor local councils, provincial chieftaincy administration, and develop programs alongside them. The ministry also leads in the settlement of chiefdom disputes. My briefing today will be twofold. I want to capture recent events within the ministry and also to reflect on some of the activities that have continued for the past year. As a ministry, with regards to developing instruments for proper governance, the ministry embarked on nationwide consultation in the earlier on of my time of my leadership to develop a decentralization policy. That was developed and it was passed by cabinet and is now fully in use. Alongside the decentralization policy, the ministry also embarked on reviewing the Local Government Act of 2004. That has been completed following nationwide consultation, and currently we are at the legislative stage in actually looking at the revised bill. We are hoping that when Parliament resumes in October, it will be one of the first bills to be passed or enacted as an act for His Excellency the President to sign. We have also, as a ministry, worked ardently. If you could recall, the previous government amalgamated chiefdoms, 41 in total. What that means is that previously amalgamated areas in the localities were now separated and they required their own chiefs. Alongside that, we also experienced a large number of deaths of paramount chiefs in the localities. The ministry, over time, has worked with Electoral Commission Sierra Leone to conduct paramount chieftaincy elections nationwide. And it is my pleasure to inform that as it is currently, we have now completed 38 paramount chieftaincy elections. Again, I have to say, if it were only the 41 the amalgamated chiefdoms, then we would have been only left with a few to conduct. However, because of the passing of paramount chiefs in 25 chiefdoms, that increased our numbers greatly. As it is, we have close to 30 paramount chieftaincy elections to still complete. I also have to inform that the ministry has been able to manage and work alongside various other partners to settle chiefdom disputes. We had in the priority list 4 chiefdoms which had no paramount chiefs or whose paramount chiefs had been exterminated due to dispute. We managed, as a ministry, working ardently to settle and accomplish the return of 3 of those paramount chiefs, with the remaining 1 who will return in the next few weeks. The remaining 1 is the paramount chief of Lower Banta Chiefdom. As a ministry, we have the mandate to ensure that peace and stability reigns in all localities. And truly, we believe that up and down, closely working with the regional ministries, we've largely achieved that in the localities. For those chiefdoms where elections are still pending, we're still working on modalities to ensure peaceful coexistence and peaceful conduction of those elections. I need say that monitoring of local councils is a standard requirement for the ministry as a supervising ministry. But also need to reiterate that local councils are subnational councils with elected individuals responsible for positions in various local councils. As part of our responsibility of the ministry is to liaise, but the councils also have a responsibility to report on their activities to the ministry. I need inform the nation that councils, since His Excellency the President assumed office, councils up and down the nation have been working ardently to implement government business in their localities. It is a partnership, and because they are responsible for devolved sectors, intergovernmental transfers from government to local councils have been like never before. However, last year, the Ministry of Finance, alongside the Ministry of Local Government, was able to transfer 75% of the allocations. And as a responsible government, even in the midst of COVID and very turbulent international situations, government was still able to achieve that. Currently, for this year, government has transferred 51% of the allocations to local councils. And currently, the Ministry of Finance is working very closely with the ministry for the remaining 49% to be disbursed to local councils. I have to remind all of us that these are not easy financial times. But however, because His Excellency the President's government is very committed to local governance, that commitment has made these transfers very possible in spite of international constraints that have affected revenue mobilization all over the world. Again, I needn't reiterate our position as a ministry in terms of our expectation of all local councils to work in synergy with the central ministry in the performing of their functions and making us aware of situations in their various councils. I need to inform that there are various projects up and down the nation implemented alongside partners for development in these localities. I have to say we have the Resilience Urban Sierra Leone project, which is a World Bank project aimed at strengthening capacities in our cities. And when I say the cities, they include Bo City, Kenema, Kwedimu Sembehu, Bond Municipality, Makeni City, Potloko City, and in addition to that, Western Rural District Council. We have managed to acquire 100-acre land in Hastings for a landfill site. Most of you would have realized that waste management is a critical issue, especially in the Western region. And because of that, government has made that a priority, working with partners to ensure that we acquire a landfill site. And the ROSEP project will enable the development of that landfill site so that the bombers that we know will become a thing of the past. We want to express gratitude to the Ministry of Defense for their understanding in partnering with the Ministry of Local Government and the Ministry of Finance in providing us the 100-acre land at Hastings. We also have the Accountable Governance project, which is also a World Bank project impacting on district councils up and down the nation, and is also aimed at strengthening local governance in all the localities and building capacity in those local councils. Government has also been working very closely with the European Union in enhancing local governance, especially in the areas of revenue generation and also building structures to enhance local councils. Initially, the grant from the EU impacted on Cambia, Pujahu, Kenema, and Bombali. Projects in those areas are currently being undertaken. In Pujong, we have guest houses, 5 markets. In Kenema District Council, we have a multi-purpose hall, 1 funeral home, 2 markets. In Bombali District Council, we have a cattle paddock, 2 markets, student hostels, and in Cambia, we have transit center for vehicles crossing the border, and also stores and markets. And in all of these areas, we also have culverts being built by local councils, working closely with local government, supported by the European Union. As a ministry, alongside all other institutions, we do recognize the constraints of the ministry in carrying out its responsibilities, mainly as a result of the current situation worldwide. However, the ministry continues to strive to ensure that His Excellency's commitment to local council is realized. As we speak, there's current work going on in developing a comprehensive local government assessment guideline, product that will be used to enhance our monitoring of local councils nationwide. Additionally, the agent of the ministry, which is the Local Government Service Commission, is also engaging in the review of the Human Resource Management Guideline for local governance. You may recall that at the beginning of the year, there were tensions at Freetown City Council, and the ministry had to intervene in order to reduce the tensions and also to understand what prevailed in that council. The ministry set up an investigation team that looked into various areas of the Freetown City Council and came out with recommendations relating to how to move forward. Following the recommendations, the ministry developed 16 benchmarks for Freetown City Council. And the ministry met with Freetown City Council once to look at those benchmarks and how they meeting the requirements of those benchmarks would actually look like. For now, we have to say as a ministry that we still have, excuse me, we still have critical areas to address with Freetown City Council. But I'm pleased to inform that one of the outstanding areas at the time, which was that the mayor of Freetown City Council should repay monies that were inappropriately spent from the council coffers back into the council. I need to say or to inform that we received information in writing from the ACC that interested partners of the mayor have repaid the money that we asked to be paid. I have to say that the interested partners, of course, would have done this, I hope, with the consent of the mayor. That in itself is clearly a manifestation that monies were inappropriately spent by the Freetown City Council. It is now for the ministry to have conversations of this conduct at the highest body of local governance, which is the Interministerial Council, which is chaired by the Honorable Vice President. I also have to state that improper spending is completely unacceptable as far as the ministry is concerned, especially in areas where there is a cavalier manner of doing so. The spending, as far as we are concerned, was surreptitious and therefore completely not in line with the requirement of the Financial Management Act. So the repayment, in as much as we are pleased that the repayments have been done, but clearly, as a ministry, the supervising ministry for the Freetown City Council and the mayor, we still believe that that matter should be discussed at the highest level of local governance. Recently, the ministry has been approached with regards to inflammatory remarks that were made by the mayor of Freetown City Council at the Freetown International Terminal. The ministry wants to condemn that sort of behavior or conduct, especially in inciting Sierra Leoneans and worldwide to attract when the police were actually doing what was within their mandate. Issues of criminality are obviously for the police, and we needn't interfere in the business of investigating police matters. We leave them until the police inform us about the situation and how those situations have been addressed. So as a ministry, we want to inform the public that we condemn that sort of behavior or conduct which was purported to put the nation in bad light. I have to also state that as a ministry, I only became aware as the Minister of Local Government that the mayor was leaving the shores of Sierra Leone on Tuesday when I returned back from my travels in the provinces. The letter informed that the mayor was traveling to the side meeting in the UN. We hadn't discussed that. We don't know the nature of the engagement and also the funding of that engagement either. I have, therefore, instructed the permanent secretary of the ministry to summon the mayor to an urgent meeting on the 28th of September to discuss issues around traveling and also matters related to procedures. Finally, I also want to note that His Excellency's government has engaged or has been has worked with the Russian Federation um, back following His Excellency's visit to Russia, and the Russian Federation committed 200 waste trucks to the Republic of Sierra Leone. We initially received the first uh, batch of 50 trucks, which have now been distributed nationwide for waste management. We are also expecting within the next 7 days 50 dump trucks from the Russian Federation for the use of Sierra Leone. I thank you for listening to this update, and obviously I will avail myself to a few questions if you have. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Coordinator of outreach, Joe. Okay, please announce your name and media house before you pose your question. We'll take two sets of 4 questions. After the first set, the honorable minister will respond, and then we'll take the next set of questions. So we start. Guys, the mic, please. Yes, questions, please.
Okay, thank you. I'm Mohammed Kumar of the Washington State of the Voice of Diaspora Environment and all that. My first question goes to the Prime Minister of Information Communications. Yes, sir. If you were a member of the head of the 16 political parties in Sierra Leone, send the president of this nation addressing the United Nations and the Educational Transformation Summit, what actually does it mean when it comes to projecting their integrity and nationalism? Would you still continue to criticize the president for not performing well in the educational sector? Minister of Local Government, sir, how many petitions did you receive for the 30 elections to um, um, conducted? That is one. Mr. Minister, your ministry is blamed by the public for buttressing an issue at Sanaba Boloto elections, which stems from the colonial past to our present. He has achieved them wherein more than 6 petitions have met on the same subject matter. That the colonial masters say they only have give the okay to 2 contesting primary chiefs houses in that chiefdom. Now we have an 11. So whenever you give the okay for an election, it's misinterpreted by another petition. Do you have documents at the Ministry of Local Government to prove that indeed it was the colonial masters who passed this verdict? Could I ask one more question, sir?
Yes.
From the elections conducted so far remaining 30, out of 38, how much money did you spend? Thank you.
Okay, next question, please.
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm Ali Bandishalo from our local newspaper. Mr. Minister, I want to know the current status of how far have you come to unify traditional leaders? Because I understood that your ministry made an attempt to negotiate or to mediate among traditional leaders, the 16 tribal heads. I want to know the current status of that particular activity.
So you mean tribal heads?
Traditional leaders.
When you said
Farmer chiefs or
Traditional leaders.
oh, healers.
Healers.
Okay.
Oh, it's actually healers. Okay.
Ministry made an attempt to, mediate among them.
Okay, next question, please.
Hassan Amani Kamara, Independent Observer. Mr. Minister of Local Government, how do you say about relocating of the bombing to Hastings? I stand to be corrected. Now, sir, have you taken into consideration the circumstances surrounding relocating the bomber to that area, taking into consideration, you know, transporting waste from the bomber where it is presently to Hastings. So what have you done in order for you to assuage or put in mechanism in place to ensure that it will not burden the people? And next, I would want to know why the monthly cleaning exercises, you know, is not going on any longer without any clear picture or explaining to the public as to what is the reason behind that. But we all know this rainy season, some of the incidences that have been happening as a result of the cleaning exercises not being taking place. So we want to know around that. Thank you.
Okay, one more question for this first set.
Yes, I'm here. Joseph Saidu Bombatui is my nomenclature, a Lion newspaper. Mr. Minister, I want you to take a break. I'm looking at the political interference towards the council, especially the opposition, when looking at their constraint towards revenue generation. What are your plans as a minister to augment short kind of challenges of as an institution? And also, I want you to look at how far is the default function of council to what equity of source required. And also, I want you to take a cognizance also back. It's about what are your stance to create free, fair, and credible election, especially prior to this registration, without political involvement of our chiefs. And I want you to take it to cognizance again.
Finally, please.
It's about the subsidies towards the council. How efficient and effective are those subsidies? And lastly, it's about the area of bilateral trade with Sierra Leone and Russia. Take into cognizance about the Ukraine war. What can you say as a minister? Because we are under your purview as a minister.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Minister, please respond to this first set.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all. I'll start from Lion newspaper. Um, Now, I have no mandate to actually comment on issues of the last question. Clearly, we do know that government has taken a stance on those issues, and that stance hasn't changed at all. With regards to the role of chiefs, of course, chiefs are expected to encourage their subjects to participate in the electoral process. And that information has been cascaded nationwide to all paramount chiefs and sub chiefs to encourage their subjects to engage in the registration process. You may well be aware that registration gives you additional benefits apart from giving you the credibility to engage in expressing your franchise. I would not think that there is any other role for the paramount chiefs apart from encouraging their subjects to engage in the processes of registration and also participating in the free and fair elections, which is actually conducted not by the ministry but by Electoral Commission Sierra Leone. Devolved functions of ministries, we believe that we've come a long way. Sometime last year, we met with all MDAs to establish a pathway with regards to how we could devolve the rest of the functions to local councils. Again, that devolution map of the rest of the functions will be also one of the items on the agenda for the Interministerial Council that will take place soon.
Why now, sir?
It's always been in existence. Government in and out have been um, showing commitment towards devolution. And obviously, we are now about 22 years since the Local Governance Act itself. We learned so much from the devolution that we need to refresh what is possible and what isn't. You spoke about constraints in opposition councils. As far as I'm aware, there hasn't been any differentiation in terms of intergovernmental transfers to all local councils. His Excellency the President is the President of the nation and has not in any way discriminated against any council. So when I talk about intergovernmental transfers and support to local councils, even with partner engagements, you can see from the report that I gave that they are widely spread. It is not only in areas where you possibly consider as opposition councils or government strongholds, but they are spread nationwide. So the constraints that any council may undergo may be a general constraint that is in all other councils. Because as I said earlier, we are all experiencing tough financial times with regards to raising revenue. And one of the aspirations that we support as a ministry is to ensure that local councils mobilize local revenue. That has dropped significantly and will definitely impact on the performance of some of those councils. Relocating of Bome, there has and continues to be engagements with all the sectors that will make this possible. The local councils are involved in actually determining the site, because if you look up and down Freetown, there is no other site where this can actually be located. Of course, if there was any site that could be nearer, trust me, when you talk about cost effectiveness, that site should have been considered. But clearly, that is one of the sites, and we think the two councils close, that is Western Rural District and Freetown City Council, are engaged in processes to ensure that that landfill site is built in that area. Monthly cleaning. Monthly cleaning, of course, we know the impact that that had up and down the nation. And again, we have to say, during difficult financial times, economic times, I have to say, priorities have to be established with regards to payment of salaries, of course, ensuring that other priorities are met, and we encourage Sierra Leoneans to be mindful of how they manage waste and throw waste about, because it's very, very important. However, government has been engaging various other agencies to ensure that materials that clog gutters and various other areas are actually dealt with. I know that through the in collaboration with the Ministry of Environment and also one of the other agencies, disaster agency, there was an engagement of SLRA in actually clogging some of those areas. So once revenue starts increasing within the nation, the ministry is not averse, and I think government is not averse to actually reinstating monthly cleaning. Current status of traditional healers. Um, that's an interesting one. Conversations still continue, and it is dialogue, and we'll continue to engage so that we ensure that they have peaceful coexistence amongst all traditional healers nationwide. Uh, the ministry will be working in collaboration with the Ministry of Health to try and establish guidelines for the operations of traditional healers. I think that's all I can say with regards to that. I did not understand the question about colonial masters and Sandana Laboratory.
Yes, sir, that there was a document left by the William Master signed that and stated that Asanama Boroto took them only the Labe Kamara ruling house and I know that should contest for the paramount chieftaincy elections at all times. Now, if you can recall that in 2018 or what, so there were 11 arms that contested for the given elections, paramount chieftaincy election there. It met with petition. Then another, for this year, it met with another petition. Right now, I'm talking to you, sir. That is a petition case presented by three candidates for Barcelona at the High Court of Sweden. Seems to be decided. My question is there any document in your archives that proves that indeed there was an agreement between the colonial masters and these ruling houses that they should always continue to rule?
If my memory could take me as far back, I think you're talking about the Kinto Lima and the
Yes, sir.
Timni.
Yes, sir.
Right. As far as that situation is concerned, I believe it was a matter for the courts, and courts made a decision with regards to that. Once we receive the instructions, we'll try and do what's necessary as far as that one is concerned. How many petitions? Well, for almost every election is followed by dissatisfied conclusions. And clearly, we don't want to refer to them as petitions, but they may have complaints. And in most of these cases, we try and address those complaints. We work very closely with the Ministry of Justice, and we have a focal person that deals with any petition matters. But for now, I cannot actually say from the top of my head how many petitions are there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your response. Now, please, if you want to say something.
Yes, there was a question before
Yes.
Mr. Lavina made his response. There was a question on, it's kind of hypothetical,
Yeah.
but I will speak to it because it fits within the current narrative. No matter what you would say, and I have always said, even if you did not vote for him, but I believe every reasonable Sierra Leonean who could look at our president at the global stage, you get to the point where somebody, no less a person than the Secretary General, the first gentleman of the United Nations, holding the hand of your president and literally saying, I have looked all over the world. I cannot find a better person to co-chair a global transforming education summit than you. You could have no better validation. If Sierra Leone did not have a good story to tell, that our president has made very bold and transformative efforts and steps towards redeeming our educational prowess, I don't think President Marabi would have been where he is today. I mean, he co-chaired the high-level steering panel, and he co-launched. Today, the world can boast of a multi-billion-dollar fund to transform education. And it is President Julius Maada Bio. And he just hosted the dinner with the First Lady. So when you see your president, before he was elected in 2018, nobody was using Sierra Leone as a reference point on education. It was not happening. But it's happening now under his watch. So when as a government, this government rolled out 8 clusters in our medium-term national development plan, with human capital development as the first. And this administration dared to do free quality education. People are asking the question, who's going to put the money? As if it's fanciful, it cannot be achieved. But look at where we are today. And people, even global leaders, could make reference to it and they could say, let's see what Sierra Leone is doing. And in Latin, we say res ipsa loquitur. The fact speaks for itself. These are figures nobody is cooking. Nobody is lying about these stories. The world is seeing it. So when Dr. David Sende released the 2021 annual school census, the data informs that school enrollment has increased by 37% in literally 3 to 4 years. So it was about 1.9 million beneficiaries for free quality education. It has gone up to about 3 million. So it's a 37% jump just in enrollment. And now we're talking about radical inclusion, getting pregnant girls, persons with disability. So all of these things, Sierra Leone has beautiful highlights to show. So if you ask me a hypothetical question, what should be the impression that political party leaders must have? I would simply say, divorce this from politics. Sierra Leone has made a compelling story that is too inviting to ignore. Nobody can rebut it, nobody can dismiss it. So this Sierra Leone is like the big boy in the room. At the highest level in the world, people mention Sierra Leone. People see what we are doing in education. The world is applauding us. If you take what we are contributing now, domestic financing to education, it's 22%. Sierra Leone is the third nation in the world that has made that kind of financing to education. So any political party leader, whether it's APC, PDP, C4C, should look at this story. And this alone is sufficient to give President Bio a second term. I mean, say whatever. I'm not speaking politics, but this alone, if we can achieve this in 4 years, imagine what this president would achieve in 10 years, given the kind of momentum and the attention that Sierra Leone has globally.
Thank you very much, sir. So let's take the next set of questions, please. Yes? Let's give chance to those who have not asked questions. Anybody?
Yes.
No, one by race. Okay.
Please accept
Then give it to Okama, because I don't see any new answer. After Okama, okay. Yes, sir. My Honorable Minister, sir. And the information you gave us in relation to the mayor's sum that the council has paid to the Anti-Corruption Commission, sir. We are living in a democracy. We are living in a period of accountability and transparency. What if these partners who contributed to the bar, the residents of the western urban area, their prostitute book, being known, be exposed to the media, so that while His Excellency President Bio is busy doing work in terms of development, those who try to debar it will be easily known by each and every one of us that they are responsible. What if their names are brought to the Okay, these people who contributed to pay 180 million or so to the SEC, I'm referring to, sir. My second question, if you can give me time, sir. Where else do we go? What chiefdoms do we have on paper for the next 4 or 5 primary chiefs elections? Thank you. Okay, next question. Yeah, give it to him. One question, please.
Please, I have just one for the minister and also the deputy minister.
Please, not more than
Okay. Mr. Minister, thanks for your explicit explanation. But I want to draw your mind again that some of us belong to the arc of the clan, of a family. And we have observed that so many flaws have been involved toward political interest to side people who does not belong towards the archives of the clan, towards our chieftaincy.
Whopper asked the question.
Yes. It's about the
Avoid
the approval toward chieftaincy.
Avoid the preamble and ask the question.
Yes.
Ask the question.
Okay.
Yes.
Now we have a customary law towards our chieftaincy. Now the government has referred us to the judiciary, and the customary law, there are certain clauses that involve that. You are not involved towards the clan of that type of organization, neither that type of family. But now we have observed that people who does not belong have the accreditation proven by the judiciary to contest for a chieftaincy. Is that really a good decision towards our colonial period? And also the minister, the deputy minister for information. Yes, we want to applaud President Bio towards his free quality. But the word quality emphasized a lot. As I'm still speaking here, colleague journalist, the first quarter of school has not been still paid for this September. And now they're supposed to open. They have paid the last quarters. But those first quarters, so the administration loan towards the effective and effectiveness, I mean, say, towards the efficient and effectiveness of running towards their institution. And we are talking about the free quality. It's not about the quality, it's about the reflection towards the quality. Because when we look at the area of the quality towards the education, we have so much to see.
Ask the question, please. What's the question?
Well, the question is about looking at the presentation of our president towards the UN summit. It is a laudable venture, but to what reflection? What are the indicators that the minister can testify towards area that parents reflect towards this free quality? Because when you look at a case study now, students qualify or PPs qualify for so many institutions, but the amount they pay, you can say, why not we have affordable, but you say quality free. The word free has so many embedded clauses there.
Right,
I hope that the minister can distinguish that.
Okay. So next question, please. Who else wants to ask a question? Yes.
Has been shown from this. Mr. Minister, while you were giving your statement, you spoke about attention that was actually happening in the city council until your ministry had to intervene. To make light of exposition, what tension were you actually talking about? And then when you intervened to coil down whatever tension that you were talking about, did you actually try to establish a relationship with the city council to ensure that both parties have a working relationship in order for both parties not to be going back and forth as it seems now?
Okay. Final question, please. Final question.
Mr. Minister, there had been some diffusion between paramount chiefs, executive, and also the headmen in some rural communities based on their functions. I want to know what is the legal difference between those two, the chieftains, the paramount chiefs, and the headmen. Sometimes we have a conflict in those communities.
Okay. Thank you very much for your questions. Mr. Minister, the response.
Right. I think I'll start with the last. That there is a seeming confusion between roles of headmen and those of paramount chiefs. There shouldn't be, because when we talk about headmen, we're actually talking about headmen around this western area. Those are headmen. We've got tribal heads in various districts working along with paramount chiefs and chiefs working with the various structures. So I don't think there's any area where they actually even meet in terms of rules or rule differentials. We do know that there are tribal heads in Freetown. 16 to be precise, tribal headmen representing the various tribes working in Freetown City Council. But there are no paramount chiefs here. So, in the rural areas, yes.
When you say
now,
tribal heads or headsmen, we only have tribal heads. So which sector are you talking?
This it is just like a conflict, like I mean, there's a institution rule. There is paramount. I mean, the tribal heads do complain that headmen interfere or play or do their roles. The functions, meaning
Section chiefs,
normally complain that
section
headmen,
chiefs.
section chiefs complains that headmen.
Oh, okay. I understand what you're trying to say. Well, in any structure, especially when it comes to tradition, the section chiefs are sub entities under the paramount chief because the chiefdom is divided into various sections, and each section is got the head. The representative there will be the section chief of the paramount chiefs. So I do not see how they will have conflict. Of course, probably where you're alluding to, what you're alluding to, maybe in terms of who supersedes the other. And clearly it is the paramount chief. The paramount chief is the chief of the chiefdom. And the section chief and all other chiefs are sub chiefs. So
I think this issue happened maybe.
Okay. Let me move on. If they come to the ministry, okay. Interested parties that paid for the mayor.
Yes, sir.
My name is Tamba Lamina, and I'm responsible for myself. If there is anything which is ongoing that pertains to my name, I do not expect any individual to pay for me. Because clearly, especially if I am not in agreement that should be done. Why would anybody? So we don't even have to discuss that. Because any party that shows so much interest in trying to say, oh, let me pay for her, not to be on tomorrow. Because clearly, if I am not, if I haven't done it, I haven't done it for good. So that we should enjoy it. Next PC elections, of course, we're reviewing the situation. We haven't had any, there's still one outstanding second round in Bue, which we will do immediately after the registration. And then from there, we'll then start counting our the judiciary does not give rights to contest paramount chieftaincy elections. It is the people. The people in the chiefdom determine who has right. Reference points can be made to history and various because the people know. And so
It's happened in my area, sir. Samaya Bendu. The present chief, Musa Bendu. I came from that area. Okay, I'm also a clan from that particular chiefdom.
Please allow the minister to respond.
It's about the judiciary. I gave the mandate. We are here to speak the truth, sir. And the truth can set us free.
Come back. Please allow the minister to respond.
Yes. Okay. You can say your own, sir.
Mr. Journalist from Lions newspaper. Every parliament chieftaincy elections will have various parties that want to win the elections. There is what we refer to as the Day of Declaration, and that declaration speaks to history and how you're able to defend and make yourself an aspirant for that position. What I'm aware of is that in Samuel Bediburi, we were able to listen to the those that complained at the ministry, and we've done so many of those, and that is why you have peaceful elections. However, there will still remain some people who will be very cantankerous and dogged in their positions. But for us as a ministry, we see the rights as one that people need to establish themselves, and I think the ministry is had praises up and down the nation to say that we've actually conducted fair elections, and it is the people's choice that will always be the winner. I think that should be it, right? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your questions. I'll now ask the Deputy Minister to give the closing remarks.
Just a quick response to quality bumper. I think that's why it's called free quality education. It has to be free first, and then quality will be informed by the several interventions. So, for example, it requires hiring the right caliber of teachers. It requires funding. So first, it is free. So in part fulfillment of the manifesto promise, free education has been rolled out. And that relieves parents of the burden of tuition fees, core textbooks, and all of that. So first, we have to appreciate that in part fulfillment that is happening in Sierra Leone. Quality will come over time. The last time Sierra Leone went to the Nations Cup, only until recently, was 1995. But when we got back to Nations Cup, and again courtesy of the pledge that His Excellency President Julius Maada made, when we saw Leone Stars at the Nations Cup, we may not have gone to semi-final or final, but for what we saw, Sierra Leoneans have hope that things can only get better. So quality will come over time, but it also means people like Bumper should be very constructive in our assessments, and people like Bumper should be able to come out and positively identify themselves with this process and align with the vision of His Excellency. This is an issue that should not be politicized. When we invest in our children, we will never go wrong. And I think it's just a process worth celebrating and worth identifying. So quality would come over a given period of time, but from where we are, the world applauds Sierra Leone, and Sierra Leone has made a bold and transformative step. Okay, with that, thank you very much, and I want to thank our distinguished minister, the PS, and the team from local government for coming. And thank you to our friends from the media.
Especially to Bomba.